right now we have 5 people working on the team, and they all have a specific role. We have a guy that works on the mocap, and we have a guy that models all of the head geometry for the characters. We have a guy, which is me, that models the bodies for the characters. We have a guy that textures the characters and makes them look pretty and nice and gritty or whatever. And we also have a guy that generates level of detail models for the characters. After you get a solid design, you model the character in 3D, and that's the key part of the process, the modeling, because without the modeling, the characters, no matter how good the textures turn out, the character might not look as real as we like it to be. So modeling is very key. So we model the character and we skin the character so that he can animate, and then we generate LODs, level detail models, and then we export the character and put him into the game engine and see how he works out. And then it's a lot of tweaking involved. Sometimes it never works perfectly the first time, so we'll go back and retweak the geometry or textures or whatever, and then export the character again and put it back into the game. The Ghost Recon characters are very different from the characters in Rogue Spear, because obviously polygon count, we have a higher polygon budget on the Ghost Recon characters, but beyond that, the Ghost Recon characters have a lot more bulk than the Rogue Spear characters, because Rogue Spear characters had to be sneaky and quiet and stealth, take a stealth approach, and they couldn't carry as much gear. And the Ghost Recon characters, they have to carry a lot of gear, so they look, you can immediately see the difference because they look bulky and they have a lot of packs and all kind of gear on them. So they look a lot heavier, and they have to because it's a different type of game. They're not so much concerned about the close quarter combat or the stealth. They just get in and try to get out. Well, the whole key to this type of game is realism and trying to be authentic. And we felt that the best way to capture the realism was to capture a real person. And we've done that throughout all the Rainbow projects, and including this Ghost Recon project. And we felt that why break a good thing when it works? So yeah, that was a challenge, because we tried a couple of different things. Like for the death motions while a guy was running, we had a guy that would stand on one end of the mat in the motion capture studio, and he would run, basically, you know, doing his movement, and he would run, and we'd have a guy stand at the end of the mat waiting for him, and when he came off the mat, he'd push him so that he could fall over and try to simulate the hit. So that worked out pretty good. So that's how we captured the motions for guys running and getting hit. And for the bullet hits, when the guy takes a bullet, we tried to like nudge the guy with like a pole or something, or stick, and try to simulate it like that. But that didn't turn out too good, because the motions ended up being kind of slow, and we need the motion to snap, because when you get hit with a bullet, it's like phew, you get hit hard. So we ended up having a guy that was performing, just simulating getting hit when we told him where to get hit at. So if he was getting hit in the head, he'd get in his position, and then his head would snap to the side or whatever. And we just tried to think about all the possible ways the guy could get hit and try to capture all those. And we basically just generalized. So if a guy's getting hit in the head, we have a shot where he gets hit in the head, in the front, the back, or left, or the side, or wherever.
Well, Damon Rogers is our effects artist. He uses 3D Studio Max, and he does it through a lot of particle animation or a billboard animation. Him collaborating with the engineer Curtis Smith, those two guys sort of do a trial and error on all the effects. They'll try one thing, and then they see how it looks in the game, and they make modifications on that. But mainly it's through the particles that we can achieve more realistic looking smoke, more realistic looking fire, and it comes across with pretty impressive results. One of the best effects in the game is probably the reflection of the buildings in Mission 11, the Valenius mission. That was a pretty cool effect, where you're walking down the streets and you look in the puddles and you can actually see the reflection of the buildings in the water. That was a trick, and it's, you know, any aspiring effects artists out there should try to figure out how we did it. It's very, very intense, and especially co-op mode is a lot of fun. When you're playing with a guy sitting next to you, or even via the internet, you know, or somebody in a different room, and you're walking around together trying to take out the enemies, there's a lot of anxiety about, you know, what you're doing next. It's a lot of fun.
The outside spaces initially were much more challenge to design, to come up with a process to get them into the game properly and to make sure that they were fun. Once we got past that challenge, it became actually much easier. Once we had the basic play mechanics figured out and the things that we knew worked, then it was much easier to implement those on later missions. Where on Rainbow Six or Rogue Spear, you had to continually design as you went, and with a smaller team, we didn't have as much opportunity to revise what we had put in. I think what they'll like most, and what I like most about it, is that it follows the same lines as the Rainbow Six series in terms of overall kind of look. We've established our own type of look, but it takes it 10 times better. We've added much better lighting, and that's one of the first things people noticed when we started releasing screenshots and things, was the lighting is a lot better. So you have the same knowledge, and kind of you feel comfortable with the technology when you're playing the game, but it just looks so much better. And we've been able to do so many more things that we've always wanted to do in the Rainbow series.
The Ghosts are a special forces unit in the U.S. Army. They're Green Berets. They don't get all the tough assignments. They get a lot of tough assignments, but then the Green Berets always get a lot of tough assignments. To the player who's playing the game, you might feel like, oh, you're single-handedly fighting the war, but really what's going on is there are lots of units like the Ghosts who are out doing things in parallel with you. There are lots of armored divisions and other special forces units who are doing missions. You just don't hear about them because you're focused entirely on what you're doing. We do have some specialist characters that get brought in if you complete special mission objectives, and those are drawn from other backgrounds. Some of them are U.S. Army Special Forces. Some are British or German units that are British or German soldiers that are temporarily attached to your unit. Some of them are partisans that you might find fighting alongside the people you're trying to help, and some of the other missions that are brought in to be temporarily attached to a unit. So there's a wide variety, but the core team is all special forces. Keep moving. There's a tremendous temptation to sort of just stop and snipe at the enemy at a distance and say, oh, there's somebody, I'll shoot at him, I'll shoot at him. And that works in a lot of shooters. What will happen in Ghost Recon is that the AI will come after you if you do that. And so if you intend to just sort of hang back and pick people off from a distance, that usually doesn't work very well. The other big tip is be sure to use your other teams. By sending your other fire teams in along with you, by using the command map, you can deliver a lot of firepower really quickly and totally overwhelm the enemy before they even know what hits them. Whereas if you go in by yourself, you're really relying entirely on your own twitch skills, and with sort of the one-shot kill thing, it's hard to take somebody out that way.
Okay, well, I think that every producer is going to be different in the sense that we're all kind of jack of all trades. With me, my background kind of brought some music and audio experience into the fold, and so I was able to work with Brian a little bit and develop some high-level ideas for the game, and then we'll pass that along to the team and see that idea come to fruition. On the other hand, the team and the design group is in charge of the game, and so I really try not to intervene unless I feel that the overall game design isn't meeting the original concept that we came up with for Ghost Recon. We work with Sonedecker Design Music Group, and it isn't the first time that we've worked with them. We've worked with them on several titles in the past. And I think it's through those past experiences that we've both learned and grown in terms of what makes good game audio content. And so this time around, Sound Deluxe set up a firing range and did some live weapon fires out there. And I think it's going to make for some really intense firefights in Ghost Recon.
Well, right now Ghost Recon is super fun. It's very intense, very loud, very in your face, lots of action, lots of explosions, just lots of big effects. It's like Rogue Spear on steroids. I mean, it's so huge. Every time I play it, I just start breaking out in cold sweats and getting all scared and start ducking my head and peeking around corners. It's just a really, really intense game. Well, I like to think it's really just a balance of both. It has its combat sim in that it's realistic. One shot, you die. One shot to the head, you're dead. Shots to the leg, you know, you're limping around, you're seriously impaired. However, it's also, I mean, we know this is a game. It has to be fun. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that the sounds are so cool. You know, the situations we put the player in and the problems they have to overcome are really fun. So yeah, it's just a nice combination of both. Well, Red Storm's had a nice working relationship with the military and other organizations in the past. However, the nature of our relationship needs to be kept kind of quiet. They've been a great help. They've given us a lot of research material, but as what they've actually given you, I'm sorry, I can't really elaborate further.
Well, we wanted the project to be different from Rogue Spear. So that was one of the big challenges, was to not fall into the same niche that we fell into in the past two projects. We wanted this to be its own product that had interesting things aside from what we've done in the past. We've done a lot of modifications on the engine. It's basically been revamped from Rogue Spear. We use a few of the same collision detection methods, but the whole engine and the way the loop works is completely different. We use a message passing architecture that's going to allow the multiplayer aspects of the game to be much more stable. Well, there's a new multiplayer game type that I'm excited about. The player is going to be able to take AI backup with him when he plays a multiplayer game. So you can play against your buddies and their AI backup versus you and your AI backup. So I think that's going to make for some very interesting gameplay experiences.
We tried to cut out a lot of the glitching, a lot of feet shuffling and sliding. A lot of that happened in the Rogue Spear and Rainbow Six. So the character animator worked real hard at trying to prevent that, and I think he pulled it off pretty well.
Well, I would have to say that my favorite thing about the game, that's another point that's hard to like pinpoint. The only thing that comes to mind are like the labors of love. It's the user interface. Sloan Anderson worked on the user interface, and he went through so many iterations of the shell and the user interface to try to get perfect. We went through it with fine-tooth comb. We've gone through it back and forth, trying to make sure that it's intuitive, that you know, that it's sophisticated. And because of the number of things that you can do out on the battlefield are represented by the shell, it has to be sophisticated. It has to be a sophisticated shell, and it has to be intuitive for the player. So we really did go back and forth through that so many times just to make sure that it was workable. You know, a lot of games, you get through the game and you don't recognize the shell. Well, if you don't recognize the shell, that means it actually did its job. It's one of those understated, you know, players in the game.
My favorite mission is the battlefield. Actually, that's not giving much away because it was shown at a few of the press events. The reason that it is the most, my favorite is that it is probably the most realistic representation of war that I can come up with. Luckily, I have never had to be in actual war, so to me it represents what I feel war would be like. Bullets flying all around, constant action, getting surrounded at times, having to change your plans on the fly because the enemy did something you didn't expect, which I'm guessing happens all the time in war. So to me it is the most realistic representation of a war simulation or a war scenario that I've seen in a game.
The gameplay in Ghost Recon is just incredibly intense for me. Sticking your head around corners, just knowing that at any instant you can die. When you hear bullets whizzing over your head and you can't find who's shooting at you, that whole feeling for me is just incredible. It just makes the adrenaline start flowing.
Well, the graphics are great, the gameplay is great, but the big thing I think that's really going to stand out is the way the AI works. We've really improved on how the enemies react. They're going to throw grenades at you and flank you and do all kinds of interesting things that'll surprise the player.
Oh, there's tons of exciting projects that I'm utterly unable to talk about.
Would you classify that as top secret?
Yes, I would.